Here's an update on that second 10,500 BTU sharp air conditioner that I got. I got this on Facebook Marketplace. It's from 1995. Matsushita compressor, Samsung fan motor. And when I got it, I noticed the fan would come up to speed a little slow. It wasn't making any strange noises. It did develop a problem while it was sitting. It's been sitting for, I don't remember, about a month, I think. So a little bit, maybe a little bit longer, but the bearings do not sound good on the fan motor now. And when I first started it up after it had been sitting for a while, it took a long time for it to get up to speed, and medium and low were extremely slow. And the bearing is now making a squealing sound. We'll see if it does it again. I don't know if it's going to do it again, but it was when I started it up a couple days ago. So I brought it down here in the basement, got it hooked up to the kilowatt meter, and yeah, this does draw a little bit of current even when it's off because of the electronic controls. There's actually a transformer in this thing that you can hear humming very faintly. So anyway, I'm gonna start it up. Yeah, you can hear that bearing. It's squeaking like crazy. There's our current amp draw. It's running at full speed now, but that bearing just sounds awful, so I'm going to have to take this thing apart. I'm going to have to take it apart and oil that bearing. It's definitely the front bearing, because you can hear it in here and not out there, so yeah, it needs lubrication badly. And this is the stuff I use in these, the ball bearings on these sharp air conditioners, because this stuff is really thick and it seems to last for a very long time. I did this with a couple of air conditioners, a couple of the sharp air conditioners a few years ago, and they're still nice and quiet, so that's gonna have to be done with this one. I don't know if I'm gonna do this tonight or not, but I'm gonna take it apart at some point and get it to quiet down, because that sounds absolutely horrible. It's kind of weird that this air conditioner is doing that, since this thing is in such good shape otherwise. That other 10,500 BTU that I got from that house in the ghetto, that was in much worse shape than this one, never made that sound. I mean, I did have to oil that one, but it didn't sound anything like this, so that's kind of strange. This is the only one of these I've ever heard that make that sound before, so I don't know. I think I'm going to start taking it apart right now. This one, I don't know if it's ever been out of its sleeve, because it's got all the screws in it, and if you've ever watched any of my videos of these before, you'll know that these have slide out chassis, which is nice. So I think I'm going to start taking this apart. Here's the condition of the evaporator coil. It's pretty clean. There's really no dust on it, and there's no mold or mildew in here. Even the blower wheel looks clean, so this thing has been taken pretty good care of. And here's the filter, in case you were wondering what that looks like. It's very clean, so yeah, this thing has been pretty well maintained, and it's still got the vent cover. So let's take it apart some more. Okay, things are looking a little different the further we get into the unit. There's a bunch of crap in the bottom here. That's not a big deal, but then you look at, let me get a flashlight out here so you can see that better. That condenser coil is horrible. It is just completely clogged up with dust. So that's going to need to be cleaned. As usual, there's really not much rust in the bottom of these units. But yeah, this fan motor is not sounding too happy, so I don't know if I'm going to finish this tonight or not, but I got it partially taken apart. I'm back again with the 10,500 BTU Sharp. I'm going to finish taking it apart today and oil that motor and then clean it out. And then we'll test it. Got the day off because it's Labor Day. It's super hot outside today, so yep, it's nice to work down here in the basement a little bit. Okay, I got it opened up a little bit, and as you can see, that thing is disgusting inside. Blower wheel's filthy. Styrofoam is all filthy with mold and stuff, so this thing is in major need of a cleaning, and I will do that as soon as I'm done oiling the motor. These are kind of a pain in the ass to work on because they're hard to take apart, but it's certainly doable. So I'm going to take that wheel off. I have to take this piece of foam out of here, the styrofoam, first, and then take the blower wheel off. So I'll update you as soon as I get that done. There are these two screws holding the styrofoam in. Here's one of the holes right there, and then there's another one back there. Had to use the manual screwdriver for that. Couldn't use the powered one because I couldn't really fit it in there. So, but now it's ready to come off. Here's the piece of styrofoam. As usual, part of it broke. It happens every single time I deal with styrofoam on air conditioners. And now we can get to what we actually need to get to. I also pulled this piece out, this air guide. And you can see somebody tried to clean it to make it look nice. But of course we all know what it really looks like inside now. And that's not even mentioning the filthy condenser coil. So I'm going to take this blower wheel off, and I'm going to start working on getting the motor out of there. That fan, the condenser fan, has to come off too. Just wanted to say that that nut is reverse thread, so it'll come off the opposite way that you would expect it to. Alright, so this plate doesn't really have to come off. I mean, what I could do is take that off and then just dump the oil down in there and, tilt the air conditioner backwards, but I'd really rather just take the motor out and do it that way. But I don't know. One thing I did notice that's interesting is on these older ones, at least this one, the motor is held together. The motor halves are held together with screws instead of rivets like the newer ones, the 97 ones that I have. So that's kind of interesting. So I ended up just taking this plate off and tilting the air conditioner backwards and dumping oil down in there. It's been sitting like this for a while. I was upstairs cleaning the blower wheel off. It's not perfect, but it's a million times better than it was. Like, there were clumps of dust and mold on it, and it's a lot better now. So this is the styrofoam piece is also a lot cleaner. Again, it's not perfect. I even used an abrasive sponge and a toothbrush and soap and water to clean this off, but it still didn't turn out perfect. But it's a lot better than it was. So, and so is this piece, of course. Alright, I'm going to actually take this thing outside right now while it's partially taken apart and clean it out. Since these air conditioners have a single layer condenser coil, it's very easy to clean them because you can just spray in from the back and it'll get pretty much all the dust off of there that's coating it. So, and again, there's a bunch of crap in the bottom that needs to be cleaned out too, so I'll do that. Alright, here's what we're looking like now. Cleaned out this part, washed the evaporator. Bottom is a lot cleaner. There's still some gunk down there, but other than that, it's much cleaner. A little rusty in the bottom, not surprised. And you can actually see through most of the condenser now. So you'll notice there's still some dust in here that I'm going to take off manually right now. And there's a big glob of crap down on the bottom that has to be pulled out of there, so I'm going to do that right now. It's looking pretty good now. I sucked all the sludgy crap that was in the bottom out with a wet dry vac. So yeah, there's really no more dust left on this coil, which is good. So should have much better airflow, obviously. And just in case anyone was wondering, these air conditioners, or at least this one, has drain holes. So they're not very big, but they do the job. And the way I was able to lift this up and get inside of there is there's some screws right here that hold this thing down. You just take those out and this thing flips up. So I got more oil soaking in. I think it's taken about all it's going to, so I'm probably gonna set this back down right and start putting it back together in a minute. This plastic right here on this side piece, well, basically this whole area right here is super brittle. This just broke off and it's just crumbling. Yeah, you can see it's just crumbling in the dust. So definitely some brittle plastic on here, but the most important parts of this thing are still solid. The motor is spinning a lot freer than it was before. I can demonstrate that. Oh, turn that. It's still spinning. Takes a good long time to come to a stop. And it looks like there's a little crap left on the coil right there, but the rest of it is nice and clean. That's the only spot where there's junk left. So I'm going to start putting this back together and then we'll run it. Alright, it's all put back together. And I don't remember if I shot this already, but this you have to, when you're putting that foam piece back in, you have to have it tilted forward when you put this in, because this has a lip on the back that goes behind that piece of foam. So yeah, it's all put back together though. It's much cleaner, as you can see. Blower wheel isn't covered in mold and dust anymore, and basically the whole thing is nice and clean now. Condenser is much better. You can actually see through it, and it should work a lot better. And the bottom, of course, is cleaner too. Fan is spinning a lot freer now that I oiled the bearings. I did put a little bit of oil on the outside bearing, but that one is sealed, so I don't know how successful it's going to be in getting in there. But the front bearing on these is open, so all that oil that I dumped down in there will have gone in the bearing. So let's turn this on. It's plugged in. Let's do the first startup. That sounds so much better. Blowing plenty of airflow through the condenser. Yeah, that is a major improvement. It's taking a nice long time to stop, and it's not making that awful squealing noise anymore. So let's turn it on again. This time we'll start the compressor. Might not sound too happy for a little bit, because I had this thing sitting on its back for a while when I was oiling it, so I'm sure that'll quiet down pretty quickly though. There's our current amp draw. We're on low. That's already getting cold. This refrigerant line right here always ices up after it first starts. That's right after the capillary tube, and that goes into the evaporator. And there's the return line. See, that one's already getting frosty. These loops will get frosty at first as well. That's normal. Condenser's getting warm. There's the wiring diagram in case you're curious. Capacitor is inside of this box right here. There is the thermistor. I always thought these were really unique air conditioners, the way the evaporator and the condenser are shaped. Got the outside cover for it right here. It is rated at, I forgot what it said, so yeah, it's 9.8 amps. That's what I thought. Amp draw will go up as pressure builds, and of course it would be higher if it was really, in a hot environment, because there would be more head pressure. But this thing is blowing ice cold air already, and the air coming out of it smells good. I mean, it never smelled bad to start with, which is surprising considering how moldy it was, but yeah, it smells nice and fresh now. Lots of airflow through the condenser. Compressor sounds nice and happy. Trying to practice not moving the camera so fast. Trying to make it a little bit smoother and hold it steadier. Screws I had to remove were these four. There's one that you kind of can't see. It's underneath this loop that holds the cord. And then there's that one that has the grounding strap on it. The chassis ground. These two screws right here, and then there's two right here that have to come out, and then this whole module will slide out. And there's these two. That piece of styrofoam that's in there behind this is held on with two screws, which I showed before. And I also took this off, this bracket. There's just 6 screws on that. Probably didn't have to take that off for this job, but when you do actually fully remove the motor, you have to take that off, obviously. And it sounds like the outside bearing is quieter now too after putting that oil on it, so that's good. That wasn't making nearly as much noise as the inner one was, though. And the reason for that is because, like I said before, the inner ball bearing is open and the outer one is sealed, so inner one probably loses its lubrication faster. But this stuff, I used a mixture of this Lucas oil stabilizer for engines. I used Zoom spout because this by itself is a little bit too thick. I wanted something to thin it out just a little bit, and that's what the zoom spout would do. So it's nice, as you can hear, it's nice and quiet now. It's very happy sounding. Very cold air too. This thing is working great. And as you can see, the tube is starting to lose its froth, which is normal. Not supposed to stay frosty. Just supposed to be wet. And there's the return line going into the receiver dryer, and it is nice and sweaty as well. Running on low, there's the amp draw. I'll go up to high. These are pretty efficient fan motors, so they don't draw much power. And I got this guy running in the background, circulating air down here. This is the 1950s patent high velocity fan with the big GE shaded pole unibearing motor. And the frost has all disappeared, like it should. Also disappeared over here on these loops. Now they're just wet. They're still blowing ice cold. That's warm, not too warm of course, because there's actually enough airflow through it now, but it's supposed to be warm, so that's normal. Yeah, it's functioning perfectly now. That compressor sounds great. 7.57. Yeah, you can see the head pressure is rising because I turned the fan on low. So the amp draw is going up slowly. And that's normal. When you turn the fan on low, it's not blowing as much through the condenser, and the head pressure is going to go up higher. It's fluctuating between 7.73 and 7.72. Go back up to high. And then watch as the head pressure goes down. And that seems to be about where it's going to level off. And it is running in a basement, so obviously it's not in a very hot environment, so the head pressure is not going to be too high. All the control buttons work. There's medium. And that should do it for this video. You can hear that this thing is very quiet now, and it's spinning nice and free. And that capillary tube shakes around a lot. You can still hear the refrigerant. But yeah, my work here is done. This thing is running great now. Let's start the fan up again. That's what our fan motor draws when it's on high. Medium and low. And when you turn it on fan only, it just puts it on medium speed. Of course, energy saver doesn't do anything in that function. Timer works. Temp doesn't do anything. And the reason this temp button is here is because when you are using the timer, you can hit the temp button Why is it not doing it? Oh, it's on fan only, that's right. So, silly me. I put it on cool mode, and we hit the temp button when we're in timer mode, and you can adjust the temperature. So that's what that's for.